Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Princeman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I am good. Coming to you from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast, brought to you by our good friends, the Bamboozle Project, as well as Allied Construction and Roofing. We encourage you to check them both out. We appreciate their sponsorship as always. It's coming across your screen if you're following us on the video feed. Today is episode number 87, Ochenta y Siete on the Spanish dial. If you're following there, we welcome you and we thank you for your listenership. Is that a word, right? Listenership?
Listenership. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Thank you for your listenership. You can send your questions at any time to mypbshow@gmail.com, or you can always DM us like you guys mostly do at our Instagram page, which is at Mind Your Pucking Business. You can listen to the show a variety of different ways. You can hear us on YouTube. You can actually also watch us on YouTube. You can see I'm in my Ranger gear
And
today.
Facebook.
And Facebook. You can watch the video feed. Or if you are the believers that we have faces for radio and you don't want to see us on the video feed, that's where the Spotify and iTunes option comes in, and you can check us out there.
Absolutely.
How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there.
You're hanging in
I'm
there.
actually feeling great.
So we are on. We're
Feeling
taping
great.
this episode. Actually, I'm not sure we've ever really done them. Well, I think maybe once or twice we've done it on a Monday. So we're on a Monday. We have a special guest coming on in a couple minutes. Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL Network, probably our favorite guest. And I know that's insulting to all the other guests that come on the show, but I mean, Dan Rosen is Dan Rosen. And we're going to talk a lot of things Rangers coming up with Dan in a minute. But before he comes on, let's just get up to speed. The Rangers really now are left with two preseason games left. I told you last week, and I reiterated every year, that do not put a lot of stock in preseason scores and results. The Rangers will play Boston at home on Wednesday night, and they'll conclude the preseason slate of their calendar on the schedule Saturday night when they play at the Islanders, although they will actually be playing that game up in Bridgeport. They do this every year. It's kind of interesting. When the Rangers play the Islanders away, their one, preseason game that they do, they never play at Long Island where the Islanders play, or UBS Arena where they play. They always play at their AHL affiliate. So that game will be Saturday night up in Connecticut. And then the Rangers will turn the page real quick and get ready with the regular season. You and I were talking about it before we went on the air. They will open next Tuesday night, the 11th, at home versus Madison Square Garden. And we should be on. I would think we're back to our regular schedule next week. Yep. At least that's the hope and the plan around here, where we will be back on opening day, which would be fun to be a part of. So a lot of questions sent in over the course of the last 24 hours and throughout the last week. We're going to try to get as many in with Dan as we can. You don't want us to be on for 3 hours. We can't be on for 3 hours, and Dan cannot be here for 3 hours. So we're going to try and get in as many of your questions. I've kind of condensed them where we could combine like 2 or 3 questions into one. I've done that. So we're going to try and throw some questions at Dan Rosen. We will also, after Dan is done, we will do our NFL picks. This will be a very light NFL show today because of Dan's presence. So we will talk about how we did in our week number 4 games, and then we will also give you week number 5. Let me ask you a question. Do you follow along? I mean, obviously we do our picks here during the week, but then do you know how we did, or was it when I tell you? I feel like you never. It's really what it is.
So, like, I'll pick the picks that I like with you. But as far as the grand total of how we did for the week,
right? You don't know.
Not really.
I didn't think so. So there was one game that I said last week that I loved, right? And not only did I love it, I mean, I believe what I say on the show, even though sometimes it's stupid nonsense. But there was one game that I told you I loved, and I never really bet on games. I'll do like different things, but I never really bet games. I bet this game yesterday because I loved it so much, and we were right.
Nice.
So it does show that, like, here and there, sometimes we do get it right.
Which game was that?
That was
save it for later?
No. I'll tell you. It was last night. The Chiefs. So when we were on Tuesday, they were giving 2 points, and I said that seems really weird. They're the better team. Somehow,
Yeah.
between Tuesday and last night, the line moved 3 points in Tampa's direction that the Chiefs in turn were getting a point. So they went from -2 to +1.
That's weird.
I don't know, and it was odd to me.
The
I don't
outcome
know.
was pretty crazy too.
I mean, it was 21-3 in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, strange. But so we will get to the NFL picks in a little while for sure. And you will want to hear how we did. And then we will give you kind of an early look at week 5 games.
Yeah.
Picking on a Monday is a little bit strange, I
It
will
is.
say.
It
but
is.
It
Week's
is
not over.
No, the week is definitely not over. And with the Monday night game tonight out in California, which is a good one,
Yeah.
NFC West battle, the Rams and the 49ers, it'll be a good game out there.
So the games in California, does that mean it's starting for them at like 5 o'clock?
Yeah, always Monday Night Football
Wow.
out there is early, which I kind of like better, right? Because then it doesn't
Yeah.
go late. I
Yeah.
kind of prefer it. It's like when the Rangers are on the West Coast and they all start at 10:30. I don't really
But then
prefer
like the 1 o'clock games are what, 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock in the morning, but your day's done.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
we will. I see we have Dan here. We'll try and tap Dan in again. Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL.com, our favorite guest of every guest that we have. How are you, Dan?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
I'm good. You must be getting busy now, getting excited in your line of work.
Yes, it's. I'll tell you what. I'm sick of the preseason. I hate the preseason. I mean, I understand it, and so I say that in jest. But as soon as I saw one period of one preseason game, I was like, "All right, let's go. Let's get the regular season underway here. Come on, let's get this thing
Can
started."
we get to October?
Yeah, I think the players are like that too. To be honest with you.
Yes.
Especially
Well,
the
October
veterans.
11th is only 8 days away. We are getting there. So to next Tuesday night, the opener. All right. So a couple questions for you. Let's start here. I've been intrigued at who is going to play on the right side with Kreider and Zibanejad. I have said since the beginning, my opinion is we've got to stop. We got to take the training wheels off Alexis Lafreniere. He's came here with this huge billing as going to be great. It's his 3rd season. I know it's not his natural position. I would like it to be Alexis Lafreniere, but from what I'm seeing, I don't think it's going to be. So what is your guess? Is it Sammy Blais?
Well, at this point, it does look like Sammy Blais, and I don't think that's set in stone at this point. But if you've gone this long with it throughout the preseason, most likely, short of an injury, that's how you're starting the season. And so it looks like to me it's going to be Kreider, Zibanejad, and Sammy Blais. And look, I don't have a problem with that. I think it puts Sammy Blais in a position to where he can have a good start to the season too. You add a little bit more muscle onto that line, a little bit more bump onto that line. It allows Kreider to skate. It allows Mika to do his thing too. I don't have a problem with it, especially because of the chemistry we saw with the kid line last year with Alexis Lafreniere, Filipino, and Capo Caco. And they're together too. So that makes sense to me at the start. But this, you have to remember, like, I'm going to sound like a coach here, but it's going to get changed, right? I mean, it's going to get changed. But I don't mind the start this way. It puts Lafreniere, Hedel, and Kako into a comfortable position with guys they know they have chemistry with to start a season. And you want to get off to a good start. And I think this is the way to do it. I don't have a problem with it, like I said. And Sammy Blais hadn't played a real game since November 14th of last year. So giving him an opportunity to play with Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad also allows him the opportunity to get off to a strong start too. I think really all of this, to be honest with you, is predicated mostly on how Vitaly Kravtsov does with Panarin and Trocheck. Because if Kravtsov can fit there, that solves an issue. Then you can bounce around the others, right? And so far, it looks like Kravtsov's a fit there.
Yeah, that was you just gave me the answer to the next question was if Sammy goes to the right on line 1 and the kid line 3, does the right wing on the second line become Kravtsov? And I guess we're on the same page. That's probably where they're going to go with Trocheck and Panarin.
Yeah, and that's where it's been in throughout training camp when those guys have been together. It's bounced around a little bit here and there in preseason games around who's playing, who's not. Trocheck was sick for a little bit, so he didn't get on the ice. He missed a game, so it's bounced around a little bit. But that's what preseason games and training camp is for. But if you ask me today, we're looking at 8 days right now from when we're recording this, or when they start against Tampa at the Garden. And to me, the top 3 lines are going to be Kreider, Zibanejad, Blais. And then you're going to have Panarin, Trocheck, Kravtsov, and Lafreniere, Hedel, and Kako. That's what I think it's going to look like, at least at the start for opening night.
Okay, so perfect lead into the next question. Last week, I didn't mean to be controversial. I said something, and we got comments on this that I was shocked that people cared this much. I went to the game last Monday night at the Garden. I think I told you this, versus the Islanders.
Yeah.
And I was saying to people in my section that I just don't want anything to do with Jimmy Vesey. I remember how he kind of, got out of the whole Nashville situation, came here, wasn't that memorable, didn't work in Vancouver, didn't work at the Devils last year. I don't want him taking a fourth line spot away from a younger kid that's going to be here more long term. And the feedback was, we were shocked here at how many people commented on this clip we put up. Now, there were some people who were in agreement with me, but there were some people that really, for some reason, want Jimmy Vesey on this team, and I'm not sure what I am missing. Do you think Jimmy Vesey is on the fourth line to come next Tuesday?
I think it depends on the numbers. I think it's a numbers game, to be honest with you, because you have to sign him, and that means you have to bury another guy. Because I think what they're going to do, in order to save a little bit on the cap as they continue. Remember, the cap, you accrue cap space as the season goes along. So I think what they're going to do is keep 13 forwards, 7 defensemen, and the 2 goalies. I don't think they're going 23. I think they're going to go 22 with the 13 forwards. And then it becomes, okay, well, you've got, and I'm going to try to remember this all here. The 9 we talked about, Barclay Gaudreau's on the team. That's obvious. Ryan Reeves is on the team. That's obvious. Gallant loves him. It doesn't mean he's going to play every game, but he loves the idea of Ryan Reeves on the team. And to be honest, I thought Ryan Reeves, was effective at times last season too. Ryan Carpenter was not signed to be buried, right? Ryan Carpenter is the type of centerman that is the Kevin Rooney, right? He's the Kevin Rooney of this team now. So and then you have Dryden Hunt, and you got Jimmy Vesey, and I think Julien Gauthier is going down, but. So it really, if you're going to keep 13, it kind of comes down to Dryden Hunt or Jimmy Vesey. And then the question is, well, Dryden Hunt signed, Jimmy Vesey's not. You can sign Vesey and send Hunt to the Hartford and put him on waivers and do that if you'd like to do it that way. But remember, Hunt was the guy that played for Kako, in Game 6 against Tampa Bay. So I think the coach likes him too. So it really becomes a numbers game, to be honest with you. And I don't know where it ends up, but I wouldn't be shocked if Jimmy Vesey's on the team. He's a guy who can kill penalties. He's a guy who can play up if you need him to. He can bounce around a little bit. He can score goals. I wouldn't be shocked if he was there. I think, to be honest with you, if you ask me, I think he's a more effective player than Dryden Hunt. If we're looking at just those two, I think he's a more effective player, can be a more effective player than Hunt. So that's kind of where it's at right now with the 14 for 13, if that's the way they go.
Okay. So we've got the top 4 lines down. Goaltending situation. Obviously, we know who the starter is, but my concern is the games that he's not playing, there's not Georgiev anymore. And I don't know that the expectation in the 15 to 20 games he's not there is the team's going to accrue as many points in the standings with Halak as a backup. Halak is a journeyman, is a word someone used yesterday, which is, I think, appropriate. What should if Halak plays, let's say, 15 games, what is a realistic expectation of the record that the Rangers could have in those 15 games?
He's going to play more than 15 games. I think he's going to be in that 20 to 23 game range. I look at 60 starts for Igor is the max where I'm going. I wouldn't go more than that with him. He's never had that workload in his life, right? I think it was 53 games last year, and that was the most he's played. And then he went into the playoffs and he played in 20 games, and you saw what happened. A little bit of a dip early in the Pittsburgh series, picked it up, right? I wouldn't go more than 60. Not to say that Igor can't handle more than 60, but that's the number, and that to me is where you're going now too. With teams, across the league. That's where it is with goalies. They don't play on back-to-backs. I don't know off the top of my head how many back-to-backs the Rangers do have. It's, I think, in that 10 to 15 range. And if you're there, those are at least the start. You're pretty much locked in with those starts with Jaro Halak as long as he's healthy. And they did send Louis Domingue down. Louis Domingue is still available for them. He's the new Keith Kincaid, essentially, for this team. That's why they signed him. Kincaid was the third goalie, played in Hartford. If you needed him to come up and get a spot start or a backup role, he could do that. Hartford, the proximity being so close. I look at Halak in that 20 to 25 game range more likely at that 23 to 25 game range. I think 23 is probably the sweet spot. And I think if the Rangers can win 12 of those games, I mean, if they can win,
500.
yeah, if you can win 12 of those games and you look at Igor and you're looking at, okay, if Igor gets 60 starts, let's just say 60 and 22, right? If everybody's healthy and it all works out and the Rangers win 12 of Halak's games, that means 38 wins for Igor to get to 50, which is your sweet number right there. And I don't see why that can't happen. I mean, I think that's really reasonable for what you're expecting from Igor this season and what you hope to get from Halak. And I think Halak can be I think he can be a good backup. I don't have a problem with him as the backup. Be honest with you, I didn't think, I'll say this, I didn't think Georgiev was a huge difference maker. I thought he was good. I'm concerned as him as a number one in Colorado. We'll see how it goes, But I think for Yaro Halak, he knows his role. He understands his role. Remember, Georgiev wanted more, right? He wanted more. And you always want a guy who wants more. But when you have a guy like Igor Shesterkin, you have to have a guy in his backup role who understands his role. Yaro Halak understands his role.
Got it. So in terms of a guy who wants more, let's go off the ice for a minute to the Niels Lundqvist trade. This whole situation annoyed me that for him to do this. This is sports these days. A guy who really hasn't played in professional sports except a handful of games, demanding a trade. I was shocked to see the return from Dallas. The fact that Chris Drury, and I understand it's a protected pick, but I had mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago when this went down that this could really be a case where the pick you get back ends up being better than the player going away here, which is Lundqvist, because nothing that I have seen, and again, the sample has been small, so I'll give him that, but nothing that we've seen makes you really think that this guy was going to be really a stud in the league. So to get a first-round pick, were you impressed as well with Drury bringing that back?
I was very impressed with Chris Drury bringing that back. You had a player who wasn't going to be on your team regardless of what happened. He was not going to be on the team because he's a right shot and they have 3 right shots and they wanted they don't want 4, right? You want to have more balance. He was not going to be on this team this season. He was going to at least start the season in Hartford. And then you have a guy, the same guy who wasn't going to be on your team, saying, I'm not even coming to training camp. And you're able to get a protected first-round pick for him. And I think they got the 4th too, if I'm correct, right?
Yes. I think it may be the
2025,
3rd.
3rd or 4th. Yeah. So I don't have the details all locked in my head, but to get a protected first-round pick, remember, Niels Lundqvist was the 28th pick in the draft. A protected first-round pick from Dallas, top 10 protected. They're better than a top 10 team anyway. So that's not going to be the case. I'd be shocked if Dallas was I'd be shocked if Dallas was in the lottery, put it that way.
Right.
But I wouldn't be shocked if that pick is the 22nd pick in the draft, the 21st pick in the draft, the 23rd, 24th. It could be a better pick than what it was to get Niels Lundqvist back 4 years ago. So I thought the return on that was terrific for Chris Drury, for a guy who wasn't going to play for you this year or wasn't going to be really an impact player for you this year. He could be very good. We don't know. And I wish him all the best in Dallas. And Dallas needed him. And I think Dallas has a role for him. And the type of style he plays, it's good. Peter DeBoer's system in Dallas is going to allow for Niels Lundqvist to play his role, to play his game that he is successful at, that he was so successful at in his Swedish Hockey League career. So it could be really good for Niels Lundqvist. And also, I understand the situation. Niels Lundqvist is looking at it and saying, you know what? I mean, from the time I was drafted to now, I've dropped on your depth chart. And it's really nothing that I've done. It's more like who you've been able to pick up along the way to do these things. And then Braden Schneider jumps up and does things that we didn't think Braden Schneider would be able to do this early in his career as a young defenseman. So Niels Lundqvist is looking at he's reading the tea leaves and going, I got no spot here. Not for a long time, right? Fox, Trouba, Schneider, they're not going anywhere. So he asked for a trade. And I don't know, I understand, because I had the same reaction, like, young player, who are you to ask for a trade? But, it's his agent's job to do what's best for his client. And he did. He did what's best for his client. And the Rangers did what's best for them. And they got a really good trade out of it.
Yes. And his agent has always been a thorn in the Rangers side, and Claude Lemieux. If I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
that is
That
very
is his
true.
agent.
Yes.
Did you have a question, Doug? Go ahead.
Yes, for the people who don't know, obviously not me, but for the people home, what's a protected pick?
Protected. I'll let Dan explain it. Dan.
So I believe this is a top 10 protected pick. So what that means, it's a 2023 draft pick that the Rangers got, first round pick. But if the Dallas Stars are picking 1 through 10 in the draft, the Rangers will not get that pick. That is protected for Dallas this year. So the first round pick moves to 2024 and it becomes unprotected, meaning even if Dallas has the first pick in the draft that year, it goes to the Rangers. So the lottery, if they miss the playoffs and they score in the lottery and they finish 1 through 10 in the lottery, wherever it is, that pick will not transfer to the Rangers this year or 2023, the next draft. Dallas will keep it. And then the 2024 first round pick for the Stars, regardless of where it is, will transfer to the Rangers.
And I agree with you. I would be shocked if Dallas is in the top 10 because they're more
good.
talented than that. Yeah, they're going to be good down there. All right. So back on the ice, what is a realistic expectation for Ranger fans for Lafreniere this year?
That's a good question. He's in a contract year, right? Which is why if I were him, as much as I like Hedel and Kakko, I'd be like dying to play with Kreider and Zibanejad. So, look, he had a good year. What did he have? 19 goals last year, and I thought he had a real strong playoffs. He had 9 points in the playoffs last year in 20 games. I think if all things considered, if he's not going to get a ton of power play time because he's not on the first power play unit as of right now, and I don't see an opening for him there. So you have to take that and understand that might be 5 goals taken off the board for him if he was going to be playing on the first power play. 25 goals, 55 points. 20. If you can get that out of Alexis Lafreniere, 25 goals, 60 points, and 50. In that 50 to 60 point range and 25 goals. That's a good spot for him. He's, if he bumps up and he ends up playing with Kreider and Zibanejad, consistently, maybe you add a goal or two, get him closer to 30. But he had 19 last year and he was bouncing around a little bit. And I like 25 for him as a sweet spot. If you can get that, that would be a really good season, especially if he sticks on the kid line for a long time. Now you're looking at a 25 goal scorer on what is essentially your third line and not on your first power play unit. So I like that for him. I don't think you want to overestimate it, but he had 19 last year. He's older, he's better, he's more experienced, more mature. That line is better, more experienced, more mature. I think he can add 5 or 6 goals to his total.
Is the expectation the same then with Kakko, or do we temper it with Kakko a little bit?
Well, I would temper it with Kakko. I got to see him stay healthy. I think you have to temper it a little bit with Kakko. Here is a big guy, powerful guy who has shown flashes, but hasn't done it consistently. And he's the one that I'm sort of like, how good is he going to be? Is he ever going to live up to that draft status of number 2, perhaps could have been number 1? I think he's in that mix, and that's why the Rangers gave him the 2-year deal, right? They have it's a more of a wait and see approach. So I think you have to temper it a little bit more with Kakko than and the expectations should be higher on Lafreniere. I think he's a better player, number 1. He's coming off of better playoffs, number 2. And also, Alexis looks around and he sees 8-year deals going around, for guys his age, right? Guys his age getting the 8-year deals. And he's got to play for that now. I think he's going to want that now. And let's see if he can go ahead and get that. I mean, you look around, there's a lot of guys his age that have gotten that deal. Timmy Stützle from out of Ottawa was the last one to do it. I think, he has to be an impact player. The hard thing, as I mentioned, for the Rangers, for Alexis Lafreniere on the Rangers, is not getting the power play one time, right? I mean, Kreider, Panarin, Trocheck, Zibanejad, Fox. That's your power play 1. Lafreniere is on power play 2. But he's going to kill penalties this year.
Okay. A user question that someone submitted yesterday, because we had people sending questions to ask you, and one that I thought was interesting. I'm just curious if our answer agrees. Which Ranger is most likely to duplicate this year what he did last year, Kreider or Shesterkin?
Shesterkin.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's Shesterkin. He's 26 years old. He's an elite goaltender. Is he going to get a 935 and a 207 again? I mean, boy, that would be remarkable if he does. But, he could come close to repeating that. To me, and I love Kreider, 52 goals, so much went right for Chris Kreider last year. So I love him as a player, but so much went right for him. Every single time he got into a scoring position, it seemed like he was scoring a goal. I think if Chris Kreider has 35 goals this season, it's a great season. Like 35 to 40 goals this season, I think it's a great season. You're talking about a guy who had 52 goals last year. I mean, it's pretty hard to duplicate, especially when you consider not a lot of guys duplicate that. The best goal scorers in the world of all time duplicate that. Ovechkin, Matthews are the ones that do it now. Chris Kreider, one of the best goal scorers in the world. He's a good one, but I don't think he's one of the best in the world.
Is there a concern with Igor? Would you be concerned that because of the coronavirus last year, the season started late, they played into June, he played a ton of games. There's only been a 3-month off season really for him. So he hasn't really had a ton of time to downtime. Is that a concern at all with Igor, you think?
No, not at all. I by the way, I did a big story on Igor. It's up on NHL.com right now. You can go read it. So there's a little plug.
We will.
No, I wouldn't be concerned at all about that. This is a guy, he understands. Modern day players get it. They understand their bodies. They train the appropriate way. He took some time off. He started to skate. He had a baby in the off season. In August, he had his first child. They're living in the suburbs now. He's out of Manhattan. He understands his training techniques and everything he needs to do. I would not be worried in the least. He's the guy. If you're of all the players on this team and everything going on with this organization, the Rangers, he's the one that I have if I was a fan, I would have the least amount of concern about.
Okay. So on to prediction time before I ask you a Devil and Islander question. So we'll stick with the Rangers here. Your thoughts, will they match their season point total from last season?
What they have last season? I can't even remember.
I believe it was 1-0.
No, it was higher than that. Give me a second. I'll find it.
I'll find it.
It was in 110 or something like that.
It was 110. Yep.
That's where it was.
52, 24, and 6.
They can match that. I think they're good enough. I do. I mean, I think the expectation should be to do that. I think the expectation should be to finish first in the Metropolitan Division. I don't think we're pie in the sky here for them at 110 points. They're a team that is deep, talented. It's got great skill, well coached, excellent goaltending, strong special teams. A lot of the same guys are returning. They replaced Ryan Strome, their second line center, with a guy who I think is a better second line center and can do all the same things that Strome did, but I think it's better overall than Ryan Strome. Certainly wins more faceoffs than Ryan Strome, which helps you have the puck more, obviously. The question with Trocheck is, can he gain the chemistry with Panarin that Strome had? I don't see why he can't. Kravtsov is motivated now. Lafreniere is motivated for the big contract. Your top 4D is as good as any top 4D in the league. You found a third pair right-handed defenseman. The left side on that third pair is the question mark for this team. But if your third pair left side defenseman is your biggest question mark, you're in a pretty good spot, So, if you think about that, like the biggest question mark for the Toronto Maple Leafs is goaltending. I mean, yours is is third pair left-handed D. So it's a pretty good spot to be in. So I think 110 points, 52 wins, 50 some odd, 50 wins, 110 points. Those should be the marks for the Rangers.
All right. Well, let's hope you're right on that. Shifting gears, the Devils and the Islanders real quick. The Devils, I think, can surprise some teams. I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup, but I think they can be better than some people think. I'd be a little concerned if I was Lindy Ruff that Brunette was hired, because it just kind of makes it seem like, hey, your eventual replacement is a couple feet away from you on the bench. Can the Devils be better? Or can the Devils be a surprise team this season?
Yeah, they could be a surprise team. I mean, they had 63 points last season. They're better than that now. As long as their goaltending stays healthy, they're better than that. What they have in net is not world beaters. Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood are not exactly proven commodities that are world beaters here, but the Devils played 7 goalies last year, 8 goalies last year. It was kind of ridiculous, where they were, in all of that. So I think they could be better. The Devils are still in a position, though, where you're looking at them and going, is there enough veteran leadership? Like, Jack Hughes is a terrific player. Nico Hischier is a terrific player. They have other guys that are good players, but like, who's the guy? Who's the one to take the reins for this team and say, all right, guys, we got to put this together? Who's calling the team meetings? Who's arranging the stuff out on the road trips? Who's going up and jumping in Jack Hughes' ear when he does something that, you know what, hey, let's rein it back in here, Jack. Who's that guy? And they signed Andre Palat, and I love Andre Palat as a player, and I think he's going to be a huge help for them on the ice. He's a terrific player. He was one of the unsung heroes for the Tampa Bay Lightning. If you look at Tampa Bay Lightning all-time playoff stats, Andre Palat's very close to the top of the leaderboard, and there's a reason for that. He was a big part of them getting to the playoffs all the time, and he was a huge part of their long runs. But he's not the vocal, get in your face guy, go chirping somebody's ear when they're doing. He's not that guy. So he's going to be a huge help on the ice. But I think they're still missing that element. So they'll be better. If they got 82 points this season, 82 points would have been good for 6th place in the Metropolitan Division. That would be 19 more points than the Devils had last season. So that's a huge jump. It still doesn't get you close to the playoffs. I don't think it's going to take 100 points to get into the playoffs in the East this year as it did last year. I don't think the teams at the bottom of those top 8 are as good. Washington, Boston, I think could still maybe struggle. Boston's still, I think, pretty good, but Washington could struggle. They had 100 points last year. Columbus is better. Ottawa's no doubt better. Detroit's better. Buffalo's better. But that's on the other side. The Devils, I think they could be. The Islanders are better. I think the Islanders could be a playoff team this season. So I think the Devils could be an 83-point team, but it still doesn't get them close to the playoffs. But it is 20 points better than they were last year. So that's a step in the right direction. And you're right. Lindy Ruff knows that his replacement's standing next to him if they struggle out of the gate.
Yep. So you kind of answered the Islander one where you think they can be a playoff team. I have a friend the other day who said he just expects as an Islander fan to just be terrible. He said the team is the same. Now they don't have Trotz. They have, and it's not that Lane Lambert is a no-name. He's been with Barry for a while. But they were concerned that the team's going to stink. You think they have a chance to make the playoffs?
So your friend sounds like me as a Mets fan.
It's a rough morning for you. I'm sorry.
It's tough. Yeah, got a buddy of mine. I was dropping my kids off at school. A buddy of mine started talking to me about it. I couldn't deal with it. That's the Mets. Different topic. Anyway, I do think the Islanders can be better. This team. I think they can be a playoff team, and here's why. They didn't do anything in the offseason necessarily to upgrade their forward group, but maybe Lane Lambert takes the reins off of Matt Barzal a little bit and Oliver Wahlstrom a little bit. Matt Barzal had 59 points last season. Matt Barzal should be at least an 80-point player. At least. He is that good. He is that good. He should be better than that, in fact. Let him go. You know what I mean? Like, let him go. Let the mistakes on defense happen every once in a while. It's okay. It's okay. He's going to make up for it on offense. Let him go. And I wonder if Lane Lambert's going to allow that to happen. And if he plays with Oliver Wahlstrom and maybe even Anthony Beauvillier, two guys who I think the Islanders really need more from, Barzal can help those two get more, right? And now you're looking at Wahlstrom, I think, had 13 goals last year. Beauvillier had 12. If that ends up, if these guys can kind of play together, and I don't know if that's how they're going to arrange it, but that's what I would like to see. Beauvillier on the left, Barzal in the middle, Wahlstrom on the right. Barzal's playmaking, he could get 20 goals out of Beauvillier. He can get 20 goals out of Wahlstrom. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a guy who had 12 and a guy who had 13 scoring 20. Now you're at 15 more goals, right? So, and Matt Barzal's production is going up too. It's about scoring more for the Islanders. And if they allow the offense to push a little bit, they'll score more goals. They'll be a better team. Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, they're going to be fine. I think you need more out of Kyle Palmieri, but you absolutely need more out of guys like Barzal, Wahlstrom, and Beauvillier because their defense is solid and it got better with Romanov. And you know what? Their goaltending is as good as any goaltending in the league. with Sorokin and Varlamov. It's about scoring more. Allow it to happen. Allow it to go. Your goaltending and your defense are good enough to make up for some mistakes.
Got it. Well, thank you as always, Dan. I appreciate you taking the time. Number one guest. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.
You got it, man. Anytime.
Thanks. That is Dan Rosen, senior writer, NHL.com. Always the best. I feel like I learned a ton. I love it.
Absolutely.
I was joking before, we could talk for hours and hours, but
Yeah.
people don't want to hear me talk for hours and hours. So shifting gears to the NFL, week number 4, not even in the books yet, because again, we're taping this on Monday here, so we got one more game to go tonight. But let's go back to our week 4 picks. We entered the week at 2-1 on the year. We had 2 winning weeks, 1 losing week. So how did we do in week 4? Well, we got the Cleveland -1.5 at Atlanta game wrong. We had the Commanders wrong, +3 at Dallas. We had the Chiefs, as I mentioned, -2 at Tampa, correct. We had the New York Jets winning in Pittsburgh. They were getting 3.5, and they won anyway. So we were 2-2 heading into our last game, and I was right. We were right about the Titans +3.5 at the Colts. So we got that one right as well. So we are now.
So we made you money.
We made you money
We made you
again.
money. Again.
Three of the 4 weeks so far, we have made you money.
Yeah.
So we are continuing our trend, and we now move into the week number 5 picks for Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast. Here we go with week number 5. I like the Giants +7.5 against the Packers in London. This is a neutral site game.
Yeah.
Here's my concern, though, with this line, and the line will move based on this, is who's going to play quarterback for the Giants. As of this morning, they're not sure. Tyrod Taylor sounds like he's got a concussion. He's not an option.
Yep.
Daniel Jones may not be an option. And if that's the case, it's what, Davis Webb or something?
I mean, so I was at the game, and Danny came out. Tyreek Tyson got a concussion. Danny went back in.
Yeah.
And he played like the rest of the game. It's a little bit of an ankles hurting. I think he's gonna be all right.
Okay. So I'm gonna ride this little Giant momentum. And I was so unimpressed. I actually watched last night because it was the game that was on the end of the 4th quarter and the overtime of the Patriots and the Packers. I don't even know who was playing quarterback for the Patriots, and the Packers were having some trouble.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna ride the wave here. I'm gonna take the Giants. I'm covered by a touchdown and then half a point. I'm taking the Giants +7.5. In London. Now, I don't normally like to do this, but I just feel like this is all the makings of this. 14 points is a lot. Normally, if I'm taking a game that's a 14-point line, I'm taking the 14 points. I'm not doing it here. The Bills are giving 14 at home to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is terrible. They are just awful. And the Pickett error out there, quarterback, may begin sooner than we all thought. That's how bad they are. The Bills now return home after a great win in Baltimore, a comeback win, all the momentum in the world. The Bills can put up a ton of points on Pittsburgh's defense to cover the 14. And then I'm wondering to myself, how's Pittsburgh going to even put up the points to make up the differential? And I'm struggling. So I'm taking the Bills -14. It is a ton of points. Now, I'm also going to ride the New York positivity movement here this morning and take the Jets +3 at home versus the Dolphins. Here's why. Tua better not play. I mean, the NFL should be sued if Tua's under center on Sunday. So I don't know what's going on with the Dolphins quarterback. The air is a little bit out of the sails of the Dolphins in that 3-0 start with everything that went down in Cincinnati the other night. The Jets are 2-0 on the road. They're 0-2 at home. They're due to have a good game at home, right?
Yeah.
Show up for your home fans. Fireman Ed, Fireman Ed, the guy who bangs his helmet? I saw a video yesterday with him. I think it was on Instagram. And he said that the crowd has been so amped up for the home games, but the teams start out, the opposing team, like Cincinnati, just marches down the field. The Jets are due to reverse it. And if Miami doesn't have Tua, and I don't like their running back in Chase Edmonds because I have him in fantasy and he's not good, and they're getting points, I'm taking the Jets +3 at home versus the Dolphins. Just for some reason, it's a feeling.
All right.
The other one, the Panthers have played better. They were not great yesterday for 60 minutes, but they've been better. And now the 49ers on a short week fly east to playing in Charlotte next week, and the Panthers are getting 4.5 at home. I'm taking the Panthers getting 4.5 at home. I'm sticking with on my last pick what worked last night. I told you before, and I even said last week, I loved the Chiefs getting 2 against Tampa, and they won by 10. And now the Chiefs are at home. -6.5 versus a really bad Raiders team who just got by the Broncos yesterday, barely for their first win of the season. The Chiefs can put up a lot of points on that defense. I'm taking the Chiefs -6.5 against the Raiders. So to recap the week number 5 picks for Mind Your Pucking Business, I'm taking the Giants +7.5 against the Packers in London, the Bills -14 at home versus Pittsburgh, the Jets +3 at home versus Miami, the Panthers +4.5 at home versus the 49ers, and the Chiefs -6.5 at home next week in Arrowhead against the Raiders.
I like it. I like it. Now I got a question for you.
Yes.
So if Danny doesn't play, you think that the Giants will get more points?
The Giants will get more points.
So how many points do you think they'll get?
I think it could go up to 10.
So you think so? It might be better to wait. It's only in your favor if you're rooting for the Giants to win.
If
it might be in your favor.
Right. It's
to
not
wait.
going. You're not going to get. It's not going to go the other way, right? Because I think that 7.5 is thinking that Daniel Jones is playing.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't play, that line has to go up, or else it may be a good play on the Packers, right?
Yeah.
But yes, right now, knowing that Vegas is thinking that Daniel Jones is going to start, and probably part of the reason why is, like you said, he got hurt, but then he came back in the game, and he has a full week off, and he probably just won't practice a lot this week on the ankle. I like them +7.5. If you're New York, so if you're a New York sports fan, again, we don't cover baseball on the show, and I like baseball, but I just don't cover it. If you're the Mets, it's like a miserable morning, and there's just like it's complete depression. And I'm not a Met fan, so it doesn't bother me in the least.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: that the negativity that's there's positivity with the football teams for a change, because we, again, we thought we were off to terrible seasons, and it's only 4 weeks. There's still plenty of room to be terrible. But the Giants are 3-1. The Jets are 2-2. The Jets' schedule, which is weird, I figured this out yesterday. All 4 of their games, their first 4 games, have been all versus the AFC North. They played Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. They haven't played a division game. So they played an out of division, versus a good division. They're 2-2 with 2 road wins. Now, look, you would have liked to have seen them be better at home, especially week 1 versus Baltimore. They sucked, and they weren't great versus Cincinnati at home either last week. But you take pride in the comeback wins in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And you know what? If you're a Jet fan going into MetLife Stadium this weekend versus a team you don't like, the Dolphins, you're 2-2. The Dolphins are 3-1. You can win that game, and you're tied in the standings with them. And that's hope, man. In October, that's probably better than what you thought.
Oh, 100%. And that's all we asked for. We just want a chance.
Right.
We want hope.
We were talking about that before with Connor in here. Like, you just want
to root for something.
You want to root for something, and you have a chance. And for New York football, will either of the 2 teams be playing in the Super Bowl in February? Of course not. We're not delusional idiots. Well, we are, but we're not delusional, right? But you know what? Each team has done okay. The Jets are 2-2. The Giants are 3-1 under Dable. You gotta love that. Now, like the Giant hire, and again, it's only 4 weeks. There's another 13 weeks to screw it up. I get it, but you're happy with it. You'll take it. And I, with the picks, which I never do, I'm going to ride that wave into this week. It may be a disaster, but I'm going to ride the waves with the Giants +7.5 and the Jets +3.
Yeah.
Why
first
not?
time on MYPB.
Yeah. That is the first time, 100% that I picked both New York teams. Now, you were at the Giants game yesterday. How was I didn't see because we had stuff with the kids. How was the crowd? Was the crowd into it?
Dude, I've been to every home game so far, which is crazy to say. But it's been great. The atmosphere is awesome. They really have put a lot of effort into making the atmosphere great. Last week was the legacy game, so everything was retro. They had some giant legends come. Leonard, I forgot his last name, was ringing the bell. He started the game.
Leonard Martin, I think. Would that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. The vibe and the overall games have been exciting and fun and something to root for and something for some fun. We're walking out of the stadium too, and like all of Giants, like legends and all Giants fans are really pumped up. We're leaving the stadium. This big black Suburban pulls up next to me, rolls down his window and goes, "Yeah, Giants," gives me a fist pump. On this fist were 2 Super Bowl rings. And then he just drives off. I had no idea who it was. Could be anyone.
And the Leonard was Leonard Williams. It came to me. He's the guy of the Giants. So look, if you're a New York football fan, you know what? Like the first month of your season could have been worse.
Yeah,
absolutely. We thank Dan Rosen for coming on today. Nobody better than Dan. We will continue to cover the Rangers next week. We should be on next Tuesday, which is opening night for the Rangers. So we'll do some season preview stuff. I will give my thoughts on the season in terms of where I think they'll end up. We probably will have some Ranger guests next week. Not really definitive on who that will be yet, but there will be definitely some Ranger guests on next week. Anything else from you?
No. Good stuff.
We thank Dan Rosen. We thank the Bamboozle Project and Allied Construction and Roofing as always. We thank you for your listenership. Continue sending in the questions. Again, we don't mind the hate, by the way, on the Instagram page with this Jimmy VC thing. We can take it. It's the beauty of debate and opinions. You don't have to agree with me, and we don't have to agree with you.
No.
But, keep posting your opinions. We can take it. And everyone have a good week. We will talk to you next week.
Whoa.
Whoa, no, we're not.
If they got questions.
Oh, if you have questions, that's right. mypbshow@gmail.com. You can send them there, or you can also DM us on Instagram.
Yes, there you go.
And we will talk to you all next week. Until then, have a great and safe week.